Namaste everyone. I'm your host Capt.Vijay and my co-host Capt.Gajanan Karanjikar. Welcome to the next episode of Pilot Talks,
Pilot ki baat.
Pilot Ki Baat. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Vijay. Very nice to see you again this morning. And this is the next episode of the last one, I believe. So, again, we have Malcolm Goodfellow. So, let's welcome Malcolm. You may introduce him in 2-3 lines just to refresh the memory of viewers.
Yes, sir. We have Captain Malcolm Goodfellow on board today again. And in short, he has been a check pilot at Newcastle for the last 6 years and has been a Newcastle pilot for the last 17 years. So he has close to 47 years in the maritime industry. Prior to piloting, he was also the surveyor in charge and an examiner of mates and masters for AIMPA. He's also a licensed compass adjuster for over 30 years and conducts part-time lecturing on magnetic compasses and magnetism.
Yes, that's true, Malcolm. As we saw last time, he spoke very well on his incident, unfortunate one. He had to undergo that ordeal of personal injury, and this time he's going to take that incident ahead with respect to the pilot transfer procedures and things like that. So let's hear him more, so the viewers are benefited with his knowledge. And as we all know, he's a great presenter. So, we will welcome Malcolm on board.
Let's get Captain Malcolm Goodfellow on board.
Yeah, welcome back, Malcolm. Welcome back
you.
to you, and very fantastic story so far you have narrated. And I'm sure the Vijay has got a lot to take on because, as a ship master, he hardly sees or hears this side of the story. So let Vijay ask you a question or two now.
Yes.
Vijay, go ahead.
Coming on to your unfortunate near-death experience, it was really sad, and I must say that I'm thankful to God that nothing major happened. You're lucky, and I'm really thankful to those boat crew. They really did their part, and like you mentioned that they should be honored because considering 45 minutes from the boat from the vessel's boarding area, pilot station to the jetty, 45 minutes is a long time for any disaster to happen. And the guy you mentioned that he held on to you, kept you properly, didn't let you move. So that was really a commendable job that he did. And yes, like you mentioned, pilot transfer is one of the most hazardous operation. It's a fact, and most of the master mariners, or in fact, most of the seafarers, don't view it that way. Now, with this narration of your ordeal, near-death experience, I'm sure when the seafarers will be watching this episode, they will have a very good idea that what can go wrong if the lee is not maintained properly, if the pilot ladder is not rigged properly. So this will definitely give a lesson to all the existing master mariners, including me.
And very particularly, he has said, and I agree with him, because, I've been a ship master myself for 6 years, and, we always think, I used to always ask the duty officer on the walkie-talkie who's standing at the pilot ladder, is pilot on the ladder? Okay. When pilot is on the ladder, that entire responsibility, putting the pilot on the ladder is of the port, So the ship masters don't give a damn consideration to this. And I'm sure, of course, I was fortunate not to have an accident with any of my pilots or never had a complaint from anyone, including the post-ship control about pilot ladders and things like that, because we used to keep them in very ship-shape condition. But I'm just saying that, after seeing this video, a lot of master mariners, a lot of seafarers will learn that they are also to be involved into a pilot transfer procedure. It is not a pilot boat crew or a port's job. It is equally important that the ship's crew is involved.
Yeah,
that's
exactly
the takeaway.
Exactly, and that's the point I keep trying to make, and we've all seen it that maybe 1 out of every, maybe even more than 1 out of 10 pilot ladders aren't rigged correctly. The crew, and that's a lack of knowledge on the ship part, but the ladders aren't rigged correctly. I served my time on British ships, and it was just normal practice when a pilot was boarding the ship, the master was on the bridge wing looking over the side of the ship when the pilot got on the ladder. I never see that anymore, Kajanan. Every time I'm a pilot, I've never ever. I never see masters even looking over the bridge wing when the pilot's getting on board.
And to tell you very frankly and honestly, I have never missed that. I have never missed in my life seeing a pilot on ladder and off the ladder, or by my own eyes. Oh, duty officer is always there. Duty officer always is manned, but no, I have always overseen the pilot getting on the pilot ladder and getting off the pilot ladder, because for one reason I used to have the engine stopped. You know, when the pilot is boarding and we are going at say so pilot boarding speed requested 6 knots, 7 knots, 5 knots, whatever it is. And when the pilot board is to be at the alongside, I used to go on the bridge wing and tell duty officer, stop engine. And the engine is to be stopped, and I have to watch myself, because by the time duty officer report will be late. Then after the pilot is on the ladder, I have to say, okay, let's go ahead. You know, so she has the steerage and all that. And similarly for getting off, this practice is missing, Malcolm. I fully agree with you.
It's a practice that's gone by the wayside, Kajanan, and it's sad to see it. And it was just normal practice in my day at sea that the master always looked over the bridge wing when the pilot was on the ladder, and it's disappearing. I don't know why. And then, but even more than that, it's the whole thing of rigging pilot ladders. People don't know how to rig pilot ladders now, and they're not. There's some very good information which I can send you. I give a talk to the Masters and Mates College in Newcastle about pilot transfer, and I've done that for a number of years. And I put a very good PowerPoint presentation together, and about not only the regulations of pilot ladders, but a lot of photos of defects on pilot ladders. We've all seen photos of the defects of pilot ladders, but this, and I'm quite happy to send you that PowerPoint presentation, and you can use it for your pilots or masters if you want, but by all means. And it shows some of the statistics from the Asia Pacific MOU on port state control about the deficiencies in pilot transfer arrangements, and it's scary. It's just scary. 25% of ships don't have an officer watching the pilot on the ladder at all. It's just scary. The whole thing's scary, and the pilot doesn't know that. He's on the ladder. He doesn't know who's looking over the side, whether it's the officer or just a seaman or whatever. And but I'll send you the presentation if you want, Kajanan. And it has all those graphs of all the deficiencies found in pilot ladders and all that, and it'll blow you away. And that's just normal what we find in Australia and Asia Pacific.
I will.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And more than that, Malcolm, if you are willing to, I will get you involved in one of the Mates Master classes in Indian Maritime Institute also, because we do almost every 3 months. We do a 45 minutes classes in all institutes, and the Indian pilots teach them about the pilot ladder procedure, pilot ladder safety, and what is the exact consequences if the pilot falls overboard. We teach this ourselves to the maritime training institutes, just to create an awareness, because this is not in the syllabus. I mean, I'm sure Vijay can put some light on this. Vijay, did you learn about this when you were doing the Mates and Masters? Did you learn about the pilot ladder safety aspect and rigging procedures and the legality of the pilot falling overboard?
To be honest, it's not covered, and a lot of people, mates, masters, they just don't value this. I will not say that I am expert, but as a mate, the master used to send the duty officer to attend the pilot. But then, even if I was involved in any of the paperwork, I don't know, somehow I used to just go on the A deck starboard side or port side and just be there whenever any the pilot transfer change was happening place, whether be it any crew change or pilot boarding or disembarking. I used to just be there. And as a master also last year, few 5 or 10 pilot transfers that happened, always on the bridge wing. And then as soon as the pilot gets onto the boat, he waves his hand, and then you get a sigh of relief that okay, job well done. Yeah. Once he comes on board on the main deck, pilot on board, then okay, it's like a job well done. Okay, somebody safely come on board. So that thing is missing. And one of the reasons I took initiative and made one pilot boarding arrangement video on YouTube, thinking that it might help somebody to ensure that the D shackles are not used. It was specific to the D shackle ones. But yes, with this idea and this show, me and Captain Gajanan, we worked on this idea that we will make a video log 15-20 minutes, and at least people, even if they're fast forwarding, they will watch some of the important bullet points that why it's so critical. And today's episode, I must say, this episode will be really game changing because of the way you narrated your incident. If somebody is listening, like I was listening as a master mariner, I was imagining the entire thing, you climbing and you falling back. I also had some personal near-death accidents, bike accidents. So I was just relating everything to that. So it can be anybody. And a master or a chief officer or somebody who's like sending a junior officer cadet to the gangway or to the pilot boat to assist the pilot is definitely wrong because he's still learning. He should send a responsible officer, and it will happen if he knows the implications. There are legal implications, but that will happen only when something has taken place. But he should ensure that nothing takes place in the first place.
And the big thing, VJ, is that the crew and the officer who's looking at the pilot ladder are fully aware of the requirements of a properly rigged pilot ladder, and the amount of ships we see where the arrangements are wrong. I mean, the man ropes aren't tied off properly. The ladder is not supported properly with rolling hitches, and you can list hundreds and hundreds of examples of a badly rigged pilot ladder and retrieving lines going aft instead of forward, and all there's 100 examples all the time, and there's something being lost in the education in the colleges where people aren't learning the skills of and it's the most safety critical thing that will ever happen on a ship is a pilot climbing up the side of the ship. And as an example, like when I give the lecture to the masters and mates in Newcastle, the white and red stripe on the side of the ship, and I have that on a card and I show the class and I say, what does that mean? And the last time I did the presentation, not one person in the class could tell me. I said, for God's sake, I said, you don't know what it's painted on the side of your ship and you don't know what it means. I said, things like that. So about the combination ladder, and it's just simple things. And once people are shown, they will do it. But people have to really understand the regulations and the condition of the ladder and the steps and the man ropes. And we've had ships come to Newcastle where the man ropes are made of synthetic rope. I mean, all you're going to do is slide down and kill yourself. And there was a case in the Barrier Reef, one of the Barrier Reef pilots about 10 years ago, and he was coming down a ship, and I think the man ropes weren't manila; they were a synthetic material, and it was never my practice to go down a whole ladder holding man ropes. I would always go down the side ropes and near the bottom get on the man ropes, but never go down 9 meters on man ropes. Anyway, this particular pilot started at 9 meters on man ropes, and his hands just started to slip, and he went 9 meters straight down the pilot boat. And lucky there was a big Fijian crew member who caught him when he landed. It would have been killed, instantly killed. And so it's all these things that the crew. It's a crew education thing, and in many cases a master education thing. And but anyway, that's what all this is about. Trying to get the message out there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, it's not a part of the syllabus for mates and masters that what I've seen, at least in India. And whatever training that has been done is only on board the ships, and that could depends on the master or chief mate who's actually interested in doing that. And also, I believe that this should be part of the company's SMS system, even if small manual. It should be like safe transfer procedures for pilot. It should be incorporated into the company's management system. It's compulsory for every crew member to hold that one certificate wherein they're trained for one day by a company training officer or maybe an institute. But it should happen. That's what I feel.
Exactly.
No, we are going to soon start that system, and AIMPA is going to take a lead in this of starting this, because we want to tell MTIs that because they don't have the staff. And I have seen, Malcolm, with the Indian pilots also, that most of the pilots are not aware what is wrong with the pilot ladder. Most of the pilots.
Yep.
You know, when I was talking to administration about 60% vessels calling Indian ports are with non-compliant pilot ladder, the other pilots in the group asked me, you know, the person who works in Dubai also, and he works in the, you know, Saudi Arabia and Gulf, you know, so they asked me, I don't see anything wrong with my pilot ladders. I said, that's because you don't know. You don't know what is wrong.
Yeah.
And when we took the initiative of teaching the cadets and the ratings and mates and masters in MTI, we also realized that the putting of a D shackle and using a different kind of hitch for tying a pilot ladder was taught in MTI. So for them, it's a familiarization of danger. They really don't know. They just think this is the right process.
And it's pretty scary.
So it really helps. I mean, you know.
Well, hopefully I'll send you that that PowerPoint presentation I used for the Masters of Mates in Newcastle, and it's got lots of examples of defective arrangements on pilot ladders. So it's good for education for whoever. Yeah. But as you say, the pilots have to. In Australia, luckily, the pilots are very attuned to a defective pilot ladder, and we make a big deal about it. And generally, in our port, if a pilot ladder is not 100% right, the pilot refuses to go on the ship, and that's the captain's problem. You send the ship away, sort the pilot ladder out, and then come back. And then we don't compromise on the pilot's safety that way at all. But I know in some parts of the world that's not the case, and there's different commercial pressures and different safety standards and all sorts of things. But as pilots, we all have to work to the same code of safety. Otherwise, people are just going to get killed. Since my accident, about 3 pilots have been killed around the world already. In New York, there was 2, and it's just and the only reason the Nautical Institute are so interested, Kajanan, in my story is because I'm one of the few pilots who's had a significant accident and survived to tell the story. Most of the time they die. And that's the truth of it. It really is terrible.
Yeah. No, very rightly said. Very rightly said. And you know, I mean, making people aware is one of the biggest jobs. Malcolm, before we end this interview, I want to ask you 2 questions, and we just about 2 of them, and your quick answers will suffice for us. You know, the post incident of this kind, I'm sure the port must have evaluated the incident and things there. What, I mean, you will definitely send me the document on the pilot transfer procedures, and as you said, they are world class, so I really want to print them in the AIMPA journal. But could you, for the benefit of viewers, you know, just narrate as to what changes were made into the pilot transfer procedures in Newcastle?
Okay, well, we had a big review process, as you're aware, and it went on for about 8 months, the review, and a lot of things were looked at. We looked at, first of all, one of the things was our procedures on the pilot boat. So we analysed our procedures, compared them to other best practices in Australia, and took all that information in, and we came up with new work instructions. We have which we think are probably world's best practice. We have a traffic light system on our pilot boats where every crew member has the right to cancel the transfer. So it's not the pilot who goes on there and says, I'm the pilot, get out of my way, I'm getting on the ladder. It doesn't work that way in our port. Now, we have a total traffic light system, red, green and orange. So if we're going alongside a ship, either the cutter master or the crew member or the pilot, if they're not happy, they flag an orange or a red, and the transfer does not occur until we sort it all out, until we have greens. We have to have 3 greens on the pilot boat before we go on the pilot ladder. So if there's 1 orange, or it doesn't matter. So the pilot might want to get on the ladder, the cutter master might say, that's good. The crew member might say, I'm not happy. It does not happen. And if it does happen, when there's not 3 greens, you lose your job. That's how serious they take it. So that's one of the things that came out of it. And that's part of our work instruction. Secondly, I know we're talking to Reshma. In Australia, very few pilots wore safety helmets. And at the time of my accident, I didn't wear a helmet, and we only had one pilot in Newcastle who used to wear a safety helmet. We thought he was stupid, right? And if once we had my accident, we had a total investigation into all the possible safety helmets for pilots and the best ones to wear. We had a total analysis of it done, and we had rescue services jumping off 7-meter towers into swimming pools with our life jackets on, and all the different helmets available around the world to ascertain whether the helmets move when the jacket inflates, all that. So every pilot in Newcastle now wears a helmet. And if I'd hit my head on the railing, it would have killed me. If you hit your head on the railing with a helmet, you survive probably. So that's the difference. And if you land on your head falling off a pole ladder, you're dead if you haven't got a helmet on. So that's a no-brainer. We gave a helmet to Reshma. She wears a helmet. And the gloves we wear, you know, the gloves on our hands, we investigated the best non-slip gloves available, and it was very hard to get that because gloves aren't made to any standard as far as non-slip. So we investigated that. The shoes that pilots wear, all the shoes that Newcastle pilots wear, be different in India, but in Australia they have a special non-slip rating, and all the shoes that we wear in Newcastle are SRC rated, which is the highest non-slip rating of any shoe sole anywhere. And that's in now Sydney pilots don't wear the shoes that we wear, and we're the same organisation. That's how slow things are to change. But anyway, we all wear the same shoes because they're the highest non-slip thing. Our pilot boat, we changed the railings on the pilot boat because where I fell, you know, there was probably 1.5 meters of clear space, and I fell there. But because my head nearly hit the railings, we modified the pilot boats and moved all the railings away. So there's just a bigger place to land. If you're going to fall, there's a freer place to land. We moved the anchors away from the front of the pilot boat so you couldn't fall on the anchors and life rafts and things. So all those things were removed. The bollards for tying up the pilot boat, at football fields they have these big surrounding sort of cushions around so you don't run into them when you're playing football and things on the goalposts and things. So they're the sort of things we had made up for all the hard fittings like the bollards on the pilot boat. So if you land on your back on the bollard, you don't break your spine, you land on something a bit softer, things like that. So we made a lot of modifications that way. We looked at the fendering on the pilot boat. The fendering, our pilot boat is state of the art, but the fendering is not very sticky. So when it's on the ship's side, it will tend to slide up and down the ship's side all the time. They looked at even modifying the fendering on the pilot boat, but they couldn't do it. It was too much of a rebuilding of the boat. But our fendering is not ideal on our pilot boat, things like that. So yeah, a lot of stuff came out of it, and the first aid training for all the crews. So all the pilots and the cutter crews all have valid first aid certificates. We have. I'm still pushing to have more enhanced first aid equipment on the pilot boat, such as tourniquets. Now, all the specialist doctors I've spoken to said you should have tourniquets on a pilot boat, because if someone's going to lose an arm or a leg, if you don't get a tourniquet on them, they're dead. They bleed to death before you get them back. So things like that, green whistles, the green whistle for pain relief, things like that. But I'm still having a battle with the Port Authority with those things, and that's 2 years after my accident. And that's just the regulatory world we live in Australia, which is very hard to change things. And our Port Authority has been a little bit slow on some things, but so that's pretty well what we've sort of done. We reviewed our life jackets intently. We made sure all our life jackets are self-inflating on pilot cutter transfer. We went through and reviewed all our life jackets with the manufacturer, and we found that some of the inflating mechanisms weren't fitted correctly. Things like that, which a pilot never normally pulls his jacket apart and looks at the inflating systems and all that. We were shown how to do that. We've produced a whole training video from Newcastle, all about pilot transfer and safe transfer, and I've done all the words for that, and that's been voiced over by experts, and we've done all the video. It's been professionally done by movie crews, and that's with the Port Authority now, and hopefully they make that available to everyone. But that is a full training video, which goes for about an hour, on proper safe pilot transfer, rigging the pilot ladders properly, how the pilot should get on the ladder, how he should get off the ladder, what he should hold on to, how he should move his body around. And so that's all been done, Kajanan, so that a lot of money and expense went into doing that. And that's, we have that now. It hasn't been released publicly, but it should be very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I fully agree with you. And the pilots' PPE is a big issue, because many pilots in India don't wear the PPE at all. And of course, safety issues they never wear. I think Reshma is the only pilot, she wears a helmet of particular type, and which is approved. I believe it is sent by you guys from Australia to her. So she wears that, and no other pilot wears that kind of helmet, because she also had an unfortunate fall, and we had all panicked that night when this happened. And fortunately, she also had some bruising injuries, and of course, she had out of duty for 3 to 4 months. And I fully understand, she also underwent a lot of physiotherapy and trauma therapy and things like you went. And I believe she was well guided by you from there, and I'm very thankful to you for that. Being from a pilot community, you guided one Indian pilot towards a betterment. And this your interview also is going to guide a lot of pilots. So I think I will let Vijay ask you a last question, and then maybe we close this interview.
Yeah, certainly.
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, you talked about the 3 green lights. That was very interesting. It has to be an agreement. And then you talked about the safety helmet as well. Initially, nobody was wearing, only one person was wearing, but now it's regulated now. And gloves, yes, it's one of the big things. Gloves, it's also one of the big problems on board the ships. Most of the gloves are just very slippery. So that's another big problem. And SRC rating shoes, you talked about, one of the highest standard shoes available. And first aid training, yes. Also, I am sure the boatman crew along with the first aid training that they have, they should also have the contingency training as well. Last question, sir. Being an aspiring pilot myself, any advice that you would like to give to your fellow pilots?
Vijay, my advice to fellow pilots, I'll read you a quote that I closed the AIMPA conference with last year, and I wrote this quote. You think it came out of a textbook, but I didn't. I wrote it, right? And this is what I meant to say, and this is for all pilots. It says, pilots are required to transfer to and from ships at sea nearly every day of their career. Pilot transfer is extremely high risk and inherently dangerous, and sadly, when it goes wrong, the consequences can and usually are devastating. Practice the highest ethos of safety culture and due diligence in your workplace. Be adaptive to change and adapt the best practices that you're aware of. Review how you do things and learn from others' misfortune. And that was what I wrote that, and I closed the conference with it. And that's my message to all pilots. Just learn from my mistake and save your life.
Spot on.
Spot on.
Absolutely spot on. It's spot on. I mean, you're speaking your heart. I can see that. And it pleases me, when you advise Reshma also, and now in your advice, it's very clear that, it's spot on. Thank you, welcome. Thank you very much.
But I'll send you that PowerPoint, Kajanan. I'll send you that PowerPoint. Reshma's got our work instructions, so you can get them from her. If she's got all those, so ask her for that, all that stuff. But I've sent it all to her anyway. So yeah.
Sure. If you can send it to me, because she's always on the ship at times at night and all that.
Okay, I'll send it
to
you.
I want to print them in the March. So you send it to me the PowerPoint as well as this. And if you want me to print this advice, we can type the advice, and in this video we can put your advice as a because it's very good.
Yeah.
Please send these wordings also.
Yes, sir. It was beautifully said.
So we will put in the end of the Malcolm's advice to all the fellow pilots as a last slide. People can read that.
But like I started with, Kajanan, at the time of my accident, I was devastated. And I thought that's the end of my career, and I love what I do. Like you love what you do, and Vijay loves what he does, and all that. But at the end of the day, if other people don't have an accident because of the results of my accident, it is all worthwhile, and that's what it's about. If other people are saved from being injured or killed because of what I can tell them, it's all worthwhile.
It is, sir. It is. It's like it's better to learn from others' mistakes rather than learn from your own mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for taking out your precious time. We have been trying to get you on board for a long time, and it's happy that we finally get to speak to you. So thank you so much, sir.
If you want any other information that I can send you, by all means, I do training videos that Ravi uses in his BRM courses, and on how we do BRM on ships, and I've taken videos of all that, and that's all. We think that's best practice in Australia, so you're quite welcome to have all that as well if you wish it. So whatever you want.
I would be definitely interested.
Absolutely, Ravi mentioned that you're a great presenter, and you have made those videos. And I mean, thank you very much for sending it to us. We will also put it on our YouTube channel, as well as show it to the cadets and the next master students. Malcolm, let me thank you very much for your time on Sunday evening, and it was great pleasure having and talking to you on this issue. And since you've been lucky, so I mean, for the accident, I wish you all the best. I'm sure the pilot level is off your chart now, so you're only going to board the vessel by helicopter as a chef pilot, and that's good.
Well, that's good.
And
okay, well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate that.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah,